Every single time the Lord has provided. Every single time. And it seems like we sing that, and sometimes I'm not sure if we believe it. Because I think sometimes we look at life and we're like, I'm walking through something, and now it seems like, God, I don't know that you're showing up. God, I don't know that you did show up, and I don't know that you will show up, but your word says that you will. And so how does that work? And as we've looked at the life of Joshua, we've looked at the entire book of Joshua, and we kind of finish it up this week. This is one of those books where you read through and there's so many good things and there's so many difficult things happening, and yet at the same time, God is orchestrating all of it. There's nothing that is outside of his hand in all of it. And so this morning, as we wrap up, I believe this is going to be one of those mornings where I think your faith is going to be challenged, but I believe more than anything, and I pray more than anything, your faith is going to be encouraged. Everything I need, my Father has it. Every single time, he's provided. Now, the Israelites started off, and we read the book of Joshua, and it starts off, and I'll kind of recap where we've been the last few weeks, but it starts off with, now Joshua, Moses, my servant, is dead. What a way to start the book. What a way to start the journey. Hey, let me give you the bad news first. Moses, the one that led you out of slavery in Egypt, Moses, the one that led you across the Red Sea, Moses, the one that led you as you wandered around in the desert. Yeah, him, that leader, that one that you looked through that had all the power and all the things and could do the miracles through him, the one that you thought was kind of like the dude, he's dead. And so, Joshua, you've got to leave these people. Joshua, you've got to take these people into a new place in a new way that they've never been. And so he's challenged, and Joshua, get up now. It's time to move forward. And Joshua, be strong and courageous, because every single place that you step, I've already given you the land. And so I want you to be strong and courageous. And oh, by the way, and everywhere you go, I'm with you. And so they start off, and they can look back and go, you know what? Moses led us out of Egypt. And we've seen this happen. And we've been delivered out of Egypt. We've been delivered when we thought that the chariots were going to catch up and the chariots were going to overtake us, and we thought we were going to die. And then all of a sudden the Red Sea parts. And so we've seen that, and the Lord provided. And then not long after that, we thought we were going to starve out in the desert, and you provided manna from heaven. We thought we were going to die of thirst, and you provided water out of the rock. We thought that we were going to get defeated even on this side of the Jordan. We thought we were going to get defeated by some of these kings that were out there, and you gave us victory. And so they've seen the Lord provide. They've seen the Lord provide. They've seen the Lord provide. But then it's time for them to take a new land. And God says, hey, be strong and courageous, because I'm with you. And so this morning we're reminded that what we hear today is not just a challenge for you to do on your own, but what we hear today is a challenge and a call out to do only through the power of Christ in you, because his presence is with you. And then the following week, we looked and we saw where they were encamped right before the Jordan, and it's at flood stage, and there's no way to make it across. And God tells Joshua, hey, tomorrow, you guys are going to see amazing things. You're going to see a miracle happen tomorrow. But today, consecrate yourselves. Today, you need to position yourselves in my direction. You need to make sure that you're ready to follow my plans. So consecrate yourselves, and then I'm going to go with you, and I'll make a way. And so the Lord provided, and they crossed over the Jordan. And then last week, as Anton spoke, and Anton reminded us of the defeat of Jericho, that Jericho was one of those weird places where God required them to have 6 days of silence walking around the city. Some of us can't make it 10 minutes without it being awkward or annoying, and we got to say something. They had to go 6 days walking around without making a noise at all. And then on the 7th day, After recognizing for 6 days that God was going to do the work and that it was all in his power and they're resting in him and they're waiting on him, but now it was time. And he says, on the seventh day, I want you to call out with a triumphant yell. In other words, you are going to scream out, you are going to yell, you are declaring victory before you even have it. It's your act of faith, it's your act of worship to me. And so we learned that, we need to remember that God has commissioned us and called us. We need to remember that we need to stay consecrated and that we need to posture ourselves in God's plan, but then also that we need to be a people of faith, that we move in the direction of faith, but also that our words back it up and that we don't just wait on the miracle to already happen. We don't wait on God to already provide all of the answers before we start moving in obedience. And that leaves us to today. Because after that battle of Jericho, there were many other battles that took place over years and years and years. And so the Hebrew people had begun to take over all of the promised land. Well, most of it. And they started to take over lots of it, but they left certain pieces and left certain places untouched, and they started to get maybe to the point where they were a little bit comfortable where they were, because they had homes now. They had places that they could kind of settle in. They had pastures for their sheep. They had places where they could grow their crops, and they could get a little bit comfortable. But their mission, according to what God had called them to do, wasn't done yet. And so as the years passed and they haven't taken everything, Joshua calls them all to one place. And he calls them to this place called Shechem. It's a town called Shechem, a place called Shechem. And that may not be important to you, but this is the very place that Abraham, years and years and years before, would set up the very first altar to worship God. And so at this very place, Joshua calls all of them together, the entire nation, and he's basically going to give them a pep talk, because Joshua has realized, wait a minute, I'm like Moses and my time's up. I don't have much time left here, and so we're not done yet. Our task isn't complete yet. Our nation is at a place where we haven't taken all of the land that God has called us to do. But it seems like maybe we've gotten a little comfortable. Maybe we've gotten a little bit neutral with our mission. And let me just tell you this, and then we'll kind of follow through with the rest of the morning. But neutral is not a long-term strategy. Like, we live in a culture that rewards flexibility. Like, keep your options open. Young adults, I'll speak to you now. Somebody's probably going to tell you at some point, like, hey, keep your options open. Keep your options open. And while I would not challenge you to take the very first person that comes your way as your future mate, if you believe that God's called you, or God desires for you, that God might have a person for you to be your husband or wife someday, then what I would say is, well, you know what? The goal is not to just keep your options open as long as you can. Because at some point, the options become a little limited. At some point, you become not quite as great of an option to others. And sometimes you start to realize, wait a minute, by keeping my options open, I'm looking for earthly perfection instead of a heavenly partner. And so, young adults, hey, that's great. I'm not saying be desperate, but find somebody that is passionate about Jesus and chasing after him. And if they've got a mole on their face, so be it. It's okay. My wife did that. She probably hasn't gotten over it yet, but I think that's why she makes me keep a beard. But you don't have to keep your options open, but that's what our culture wants us to do. Our culture wants us to keep our options open in a lot of ways. Don't commit too early. Things might change. It might be a better option. Stay adaptable. And in some things in life, that's great. In sports, that can be great. Like, change your game plan at halftime, that's fine. But this isn't football. This isn't baseball. This isn't soccer, lacrosse. This is life. And we have a mission. There are moments in life where neutrality expires. Like marriage requires a vow. Like when you get to that time when you're standing in front of your family and in front of your friends, you're standing before God and you make that commitment, and you've made that commitment, you are no longer neutral. You are one. You have made your decision and you are moving on. Now, before that time, I mean, even when you're engaged, hey, there's still play. That doesn't mean be weird. That doesn't mean cheat on people. That doesn't mean to be dishonest. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is, hey, you could back out. You could be done. The relationship, hey, you had a bad date. Done. You make that commitment. Once you've made that commitment, there's no going back. You're in. Marriage requires a vow. Citizenship requires allegiance. If you want to become a citizen of this nation right now, it doesn't matter where you come from. You can come from Canada. You can come from Venezuela. It doesn't matter where you come from. If you want to become a citizen, they're going to require you to say the Pledge of Allegiance. And some of us are like, man, no, I don't think I could say that anymore. I've not said it since second grade. I can't even remember what the words are. Some of you, but it requires allegiance. It requires at some level to go, I love where I've come from. But now I'm choosing and I'm saying that as a person that is here, I'm going to honor the laws of this country, and I'm pledging my allegiance to this country. And so we require you. That's what you're required to do to become a citizen. You can't be neutral anymore and be like, it's good for vacation. Might go back. Like, no, you have some requirements there. Leadership in your home, at work, anywhere. It requires conviction. You can't lead going, things will sort themselves out. You've got to have conviction. And then spiritually, drift eventually demands a decision. And so Joshua gathers Israel at Shechem, and this becomes a place of covenant ground. Just like later, Jesus would gather his disciples in Capernaum, and he would have a hard teaching for them, different centuries, but with the same tension. And so if you would, open your Bible to Joshua chapter 4, and we're going to read these verses. And I apologize, I didn't have my coffee early enough this morning, and I left my Bible on my table at home. So I'll have a glow on my face. Not necessarily the glow of the Lord, but a glow of the phone. Joshua chapter 24, verse 1, it says, Then Joshua assembled all the tribes of Israel at Shechem. He summoned the elders, leaders, judges, and officials of Israel, and they presented themselves before God. Joshua said to all the people, This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. All right, now it's time to listen, because this is the Lord. This is what he says. Long ago, your ancestors, including Terah, the father of Abraham, and Nahor, lived beyond the Euphrates River and worshipped other gods. But I took your father Abraham from the land beyond the Euphrates and led him throughout Canaan and gave him many descendants. I gave him Isaac, and to Isaac I gave Jacob and Esau. I assigned the hill country of Seir to Esau, but Jacob and his family went down to Egypt. Then I sent Moses and Aaron, and I afflicted the Egyptians by what I did there, and I brought you out. When I brought your people out of Egypt, you came to the sea, and the Egyptians pursued them with chariots and horsemen as far as the Red Sea. But they cried to the Lord for help, and he put darkness between you and the Egyptians. He brought the sea over them and covered them. You saw with your own eyes what I did to the Egyptians. Then you lived in the wilderness for a long time. I brought you to the land of the Amorites who lived in the east of the Jordan. They fought against you, but I gave them into your hands. I destroyed them from before you, and you took possession of their land. When Balak, son of Zippor, the king of Moab, prepared to fight against Israel, he sent for Balaam, son of Beor, to put a curse on you, but I would not listen to Balaam. So he blessed you again and again, and I delivered you out of his hand. Then you crossed the Jordan and came to Jericho. The citizens of Jericho fought against you, as did also the Amorites, Perizzites, Canaanites, Hittites, Girgashites, Hivites, and Jebusites, but I gave them into your hands. I sent the hornet ahead of you, which drove them out before you, also the 2 Amorite kings. You did not do it with your own sword and bow. So I gave you a land which you did not toil, and cities you did not build. And you live in them and eat from vineyards and olive groves that you did not plant. Now fear the Lord and serve him with all faithfulness. Throw away the gods your ancestors worshipped beyond the Euphrates River and in Egypt, and serve the Lord. But if serving the Lord seems undesirable to you, then choose for yourselves this day who you'll serve, whether the gods your ancestors served beyond the Euphrates or the gods of the Amorites in whose land you are living. But as for me and my household, we will serve the Lord. And so Joshua in this moment recounts the faithfulness of God. And he says, I took, I sent, I brought, I gave. God is the subject of every sentence. And this is not a guilt speech, right? This is not a, hey, I did this for you and you're ungrateful. I did this for you and you stink. This is not that kind of speech. It's a reminder of God's faithfulness and who he is. It is a grace speech. Reminds us of Romans 12:1 in the New Testament, where it says, therefore I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. He's framing everything and saying, this is an attitude that you should have out of the gratefulness of who God is and what he has already done for you. Not out of guilt that you have to feel like you have to earn anything. Not out of guilt that you have to feel like you should deserve it or you need to make up for it. But no, because God has done this out of his grace and mercy, it should leave you with a grateful, thankful heart that is willing to lay down everything and do whatever he calls and whatever he asks, and to trust him while doing it, because he's proved himself over and over and over again. But Joshua does something bold. He doesn't just say, serve God. It's one thing for us to say in here, hey, serve Jesus, love Jesus, have a good day. But there's a practical piece of that of going, but what does that look like? What does that mean? And so Joshua says, put away the gods. That's specific. See, Israel had left Egypt physically, but Egypt was still lingering spiritually. They were in the promised land, but still tempted by old idols. And here's the insight for you, is that you can occupy new territory while still carrying old allegiances. This is why Ford requires decision. You see, for us, modern idols may not be statues. For most of the world and most of America, we don't go and worship statues. We don't worship idols as a statue. Now, there's a Hindu temple not too far down the road, and they will. But there are many other forms of idols that we serve. Security, success, image, control, comfort, approval, political identity, personal autonomy, and I could just keep on going on and on and on about the idols that we may serve. But Jesus says in Matthew 6:24, wait a minute, no one can serve two masters. No one can serve two masters. He doesn't say no one should not. He says you cannot, because your heart will eventually lean to one of them. Neutrality is a myth. And in Revelation chapter 3, verse 15 and 16, if you're a new believer in here, you've never read the Bible, this is probably not the book that I would recommend to start with. But we'll go there a little bit today. But in this book, there's a statement that's made to a certain city that, man, you guys are neither hot nor cold, and so I will spew you out of my mouth. Like, you ever have boiling hot water? Like, boiling hot water is great. You put a little tea bag in there, a little sugar. It's great. Hot can be fine. Even just plain hot water on a cold day, yeah, that's fine. It's not the best, but whatever. Cold water right now, Florida, humidity, plenty of ice, game. I'm good. Not much worse than just plain water, room temperature. This is not helping you in any way. It's not doing any good. It's neutral, but it's not helping you. And this is what is being told to these people of like, wait a minute. You guys don't hate me. You don't love me. You claim to have me, but you do nothing. Like, it's making me sick. The neutrality is not getting you anywhere. And so Joshua comes to this point where he's forcing clarity upon the people. If serving God seems wrong to you, then say it. You ever tell your kids, like, hey, you need to do what I said? And then they look at you and you can tell what they're thinking. And you just tell them, go ahead. You got something to say? And it's kind of like one of those moments, right? It's like you can sit in a church building and be like, not doing that. Not going to do that. Not going to sing that. Not going to say that. When I leave, not doing that. And God's going, don't come. Don't. You're going to be hot. You're going to be cold. Like, make a decision. And Joshua's calling them to this place of, look, if you're going to serve those other gods, just say it. Just say that's what you're going to do. But choose. Now we fast forward a little bit to the New Testament and we go to John chapter 6. Jesus has just finished feeding the 5,000. The greatest fish dinner you've ever seen happen, miracle, all of that great thing. Like, Jesus has provided food where there was no food. People are going nuts. This is great. They got, like, Big Fin's got nothing on this. This is great. I love it. We've got fish fresh from Jesus, and it's all great. And then he's teaching me. And so there's tons of people here, tons of happy people that just ate. Crowds are following him. Momentum is high. And then he speaks on, I'm the bread of life. And then he speaks about eating his flesh and drinking his blood, and they are so confused. Like is he literal? Like, are we supposed to go up and take a bite? Like, I don't know what's going on. Is this like, I don't even know how it's not literal. Like, how does this play out? What is this all about? And so they're confused, and they're kind of like, I don't think I'm comfortable with this teaching anymore. And the text says in John 6:66, it says that after this, many of his disciples turned back and no longer walked with him. Notice it doesn't say many people that heard him for the first time. No, these are people that have been following him around. They've heard him before. And now they're like, Jesus has jumped the shark. We're out. Like, Jesus, you're going nuts, man. Maybe all this power is going to your head. Like, I'm done with this. I was cool with, like, the miracles and stuff. I was cool with the healings and stuff, but now you're saying some things I'm not really comfortable with. So you can show me all the miracles and signs and wonders, and you can show me all the truth stuff that you want to, but man, that's going to make me feel weird among my peers, and I'm just not in for it anymore. It's where expectation meets cost. And in this moment, Jesus turns, not to scream at the crowds like, get riddance, get out of here. I knew you wouldn't follow me anyways. He doesn't say that. But he turns and his attention goes to his 12. And he says, you don't want to leave too, do you? And Simon Peter answered him, Lord, to whom shall we go? You have the words of eternal life. We've come to believe and to know that you are the Holy One of God. Joshua's people were tempted by idols. Jesus' disciples are tempted by comfort. In both stories, faith stops being convenient. And Jesus asks the same kind of question that Joshua does. Not, hey, will you consider? Not, will you think about it? But will you stay? Will you serve? Will you follow when it's not easy? See, decision becomes visible when obedience becomes costly. We can say we believe in Jesus. We can say we've decided to follow Jesus. But when real life happens and obstacles are in our way, people are in our way, the world is against us, we sound foolish to other people, that decision becomes visible. See, anybody can follow when the miracles are obvious, when the crowd is large, when the momentum feels good. And Jesus doesn't beg them to stay. He dignifies them with a choice. Joshua does the same. Hey, just choose to stay. And Peter says, Lord, to whom will we go? Now, notice what he does not say. He doesn't say, we understand everything, Jesus. Totally knew what you meant by the bread of life stuff. Totally knew what you meant by the drink your blood stuff. I was following the whole time. Totally understood it. It doesn't say you know what, Jesus, everything you said, we agree with that. I'm in agreement. And he doesn't say we feel comfortable. He just says, man, there's just nowhere else. I don't know about you, but there's plenty of things in Scripture that I read and I still go, God, I just don't know if I quite understand that. I don't know if I can quite comprehend it. But I don't have to have the comprehension or the understanding to obey, to follow through. Because ultimately I've realized that I am following the author and the sustainer of the universe. I'm following a God that has done miracles. I'm following a God that has all of this teaching and going, there's no way that I could ever understand it all, that I could ever comprehend it all. And I'm okay with not comprehending it because he's God. I should not be able to comprehend a limitless God. To whom shall we go? And both are statements between them that it's a statement of allegiance, not comprehension. Like faith does not require full understanding. It requires settled loyalty. Like, God, you say this in Scripture that I'm supposed to live this way or I'm not supposed to do this. I don't know if I like that. I don't know if I necessarily would have agreed with that. I don't know if that makes me comfortable, but he's God and I'm not, and I've decided his way. See, forward is not sustained by inspiration. It's sustained by allegiance. Joshua said, put away the gods. And Jesus says, no one can serve two masters. See, modern gods, they don't require incense. They demand attention. They compete for your trust, your identity, your security, your hope. And then here's the tension for the year 2026 is you can sit in church and still have divided allegiance. Israel was in the land and still tempted by idols. Disciples were near Jesus and still tempted to leave. Anybody heard of Judas? Right? Proximity does not equal allegiance. Decision does. And for us as a church, we've made a decision. We want to be a people that we want to make a difference in this community. We want to grow and we want more people to know Jesus and we want more people to be discipled. We want more people to worship. We want more people to serve. Like we want that to happen. And then we want the people that are here to grow closer and closer to Jesus, to walk with him and to know him, to hear his voice and to follow him. Like that's what we want for people. If we want to be a church that does that, then we've got to be clear. Because if we want to be that kind of church, it's not going to happen just because we're entertained. Like I love good music. I don't want to listen to somebody that sings off key. Like I love good coffee. I don't want to go out there and drink bad coffee. I love having a clean space that's wiped down. I don't want to sit on somebody's grape jelly from 3 days ago. Like I'm all for, hey, let's do our best and let's bring excellence and let's do all of those things. I think that's very important. But ultimately, that is not going to keep people to follow Jesus. That is not going to change this city. That might keep people from not listening, not hearing. We don't want to be a distraction to them. But ultimately, it's going to be about Jesus. It's going to be because we're a people that we're clear about who we serve. We don't serve all these other masters. We don't serve all these other gods. We serve Jesus. We serve him as the Lord of our lives. He's the King of Kings. We serve him. And out of serving him, we are serving others around us. We're clear about that. We want to be clear about what we believe. Look, we don't all agree on all of the same thing. You know, there's some people in here, you're like, hey, I'm a 5-point Calvinist. And some people are like, I read Calvin and Hobbes once. That was cool. Like, we got people that are kind of all over the place when it comes to some of those things. We've got some people that think, hey, women should never preach. And then we got some people that are like, well, why not? What's wrong with you? We've got some differing opinions on some things that honestly don't matter for salvation. And so we've said we're going to be clear about the things that we do believe. We believe that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life, and no one comes to the Father except for through him. So we're going to preach Christ and him alone for salvation. And you know what? We said when we come to a place in the text, we're going to preach it however we feel like God has said it, not how we want to say it. And some of us may interpret those things a little bit differently, and that's okay. But where it's black and white, we're not going to make it gray because it's comfortable. We've got to be people that we know what we're not going to bow to. And you're like, hey, that's great for the church. That's good for the church. That's great. But what about me? Well, what about your household? And that doesn't change if your household is one. Because most likely your household, even if it's one, you still have people that you are in relationship with, that you are in deep friendship with. Your household might extend to people that you even work with. And so when you think of this idea of household, think of it in a lot of different ways, but what happens if your household decides, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord? And you're like, but how do I decide that for my house? I'm one person. Notice what Joshua says, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. He starts with himself. If you want your house to serve Jesus, start with you serving Jesus. If you want your kids to serve Jesus, start with you serving Jesus. It starts with you. And then from that, you go, wait a minute. Now that I've started serving Jesus and serving my household well, it seems like others in my household are more open to hearing about Jesus. More people in my household are on the same page and they want to serve Jesus. It's what happens when you make the decision. You draw others to make that same decision. And it's not about perfection. This is not one of those moments where you make a decision in this room today. You go home and are like, okay, you're in my house, my rules. You're following Jesus or get out. That's not what I'm saying. That's not what Jesus is saying, right? This is not about perfection. This is not about perfecting your house and going, we will be a purified house. No sin will enter this house ever. Like that's not what we're talking about. Because once you enter that house, there'll be sin in the house, right? It's not about perfection, but it is about direction. We're chasing after Jesus in this house. I'm chasing after Jesus in this house. Luke 9:23 says, whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves, take up their cross daily, and follow me. It's daily allegiance, daily decision. Who are you going to serve? It can't be a feeling. It can't be a hope. It's got to be a decision. It's got to be an allegiance that is written on your heart and you have decided and you will follow through. So here's the question for us. Who will you serve?